In the second part of the class, we discussed, well, what really is creating our miracle is the spiritual, the extra efforts we make for God. And the harder it is for us to do those extra efforts, the more powerful they are. And then what happens if it's not that hard? What we said is, oh wait, let me just actually finish the thought because I got sidetracked by the question. So we were saying first, what's too much? And too much is when you start believing in it. You start believing that's the cure. Too much is when you over prioritize it. Too much is when you do it at the expense of your spiritual service. Too much is when you put too much effort and mind space into it. Your head space is into it. Where's the better doctor, the better this, the better that? That's going to be my cure. All that are signs of too much. What did we say was too little? Too little is when you're not doing anything. Why should I? There's God, and he's totally capable. He is, and we said, if you can do something natural, he wants you to make a tool for him to work with, for him to work through. But I just do want to put one but on that. If there's absolutely nothing you can do to create the miracle you need, don't worry about it. You're completely off the hook. If whatever the situation is, there's plenty of situations in our world where there is nothing one can do. Do I have to go crazy to find something to do when there's nothing to do just so I can say I did something? No. Is God going to be upset because he's making an absolute miracle and I'm not giving him any physical tool? No. If there's something you can do physically, you must. If there's nothing you can do physically, don't worry about it. You're off the hook. Trust and do whatever spiritual you can, and God will do his part. So what's the perfect amount? We know what's too much. We know it's too little. What's the perfect amount? Before we get that answer, Aliza.
Maybe this is silly, but going and davening, let's say at a kever, does that count as doing the spiritual, or is that the physical?
Spiritual. That's spiritual.
Spiritual. Okay.
Spiritual. In other words, I understand your question.
Well, effort.
It is a physical effort, but it's to do something spiritual. So
Okay.
that would be spiritual.
Wait, what's the question?
If you would go to a kever of a tzaddik, if you would go to pray, you made tremendous physical efforts to get there. You exerted a lot of money, a lot of time, a lot of effort. That's all considered a spiritual vehicle, because praying by a gravesite does not create money or health or children. It is a spiritual effort that takes a lot of physical effort. So that's totally
is it the same?
spiritual.
Is it the same with like kashrus and stuff? Like
Kashrus, yes. All the physical efforts you make in kashrus are all considered spiritual. That's all spiritual. Because yes, you're doing physical things because we're human beings in a physical world. Giving charity is a spiritual effort. You're taking cash, you know? You're taking real this world money and you're giving it to real people that really are going to spend very physical things with it. That's all spiritual effort on your part. We're told another Jew's physicality is your spirituality. So all of that is considered spiritual efforts. Dina, do you have another question?
Yes, sorry.
No problem, please ask.
I'm wondering if, so I always wondered this, but if something comes more naturally to you, more easily to you, do you get, is that something that's hishtadlus? You keep doing it, you push yourself in those areas, but it's something that's just natural. Like you don't have to work very hard at it, whether it's being really positive or whether it's chesed or giving people rides or whatever, giving tzedakah, like it's natural. Does that get the equal amount of hishtadlus as if it wasn't natural for you?
Okay, so first of all, I just want to backtrack because Dina used the word hishtadlus. Hishtadlus means an effort. So what Dina's talking here is about spiritual efforts. There's spiritual efforts, there's physical efforts. So she's asking in the realm of spiritual efforts, and she's asking a great question. If it's easy for you to add in all this spiritual good, does it count as much as if it was difficult? Great question. It's a complicated answer. It's a good question. The simple version of the answer is no. The harder it is for you, the more punch that act has, the more power it has to create change. If it is incredibly difficult for you to give away 1 penny, because why aren't they working as hard as I am? Because I don't have too many pennies to start with. for whatever reason, because you were raised in a culture where you don't give people things for free. And it is so hard, and you push yourself and give someone $5, that could be more powerful than someone who's freely giving thousands, because God tremendously values effort. He tremendously values effort. So that concept could be like good or bad, depending on if it's hard or easy for you. If something is hard for you, this was a good moment. Now you know why you came. If this is easy for you, it's a bad moment. All the good stuff I'm doing is not worthwhile because it's easy for me. Come on. So for those people that things are hard for, you got what you came for. For those people that things are easy for, I'm going to give you two answers. One answer is find what's hard for you. You know, the fact that it's so easy to pray, and it's so easy to say Psalms, and it's so easy to give charity. I mean, again, you might be that one of those 36 perfect people of this world, but otherwise, you probably have something that's hard for you. We all do. I have plenty on my list. So, and it almost could be that it's almost like a trick of the evil inclination. The evil inclination says, oh, you're so good. You give so much charity. You're so good. You're so kind. You're so good. You say like 50 Psalms a day. You're so good. Your sleeves go past your fingertips. You're so good. And therefore, the stuff you have to work on, you're completely oblivious to, because it's covered over in all that pseudo goodness. Meaning it's not that the goodness isn't good. Of course, it is good. But that doesn't mean you don't have things you have to work on. So for the people that it's difficult, great news. Whatever you do, God has such appreciation for. For the people that it's easy, great news. There are things that are difficult for you. There are things that are difficult for everyone. It might be difficult to be nice to your husband. It might be difficult to always be honest. It might be difficult never to gossip. It might be difficult to call your mother regularly. You know, we all have things that are difficult for us. Trust me. And God wants everything I just mentioned and much, much more. So if all the classical things that everyone talks about and everyone works on and everyone always says you're supposed to do, you do mega time, that's great. But search for what God wants that's difficult for you. Why should I bother? Because A, it's probably what you're here for. And B, doing what's difficult for you is going to create far more power by God. Doesn't mean stop doing all the other stuff, but it's going to create far more power by God than doing what's natural and easy for you. I sometimes think of it like I want to gift the world with my beauty, and I want to gift myself with my weakness. That's just how I think of it in my own brain. Meaning we all have things that are very beautiful in us. We all have weaknesses. So if giving charity is so natural for you, it's a beauty. Gift it to the world. Shine with it. Enhance the world with it. If it's incredibly difficult for you to be honest or call your mother or refrain from gossip, you're going to work really, really hard. And no one's going to notice a thing. Because it's not shining. It's like really small scale. It's nothing you're going to proudly pronounce. Yes, I call my mother once every 2 weeks. What do you mean? I call my mother 3 times a day. Like, you know, it's nothing you're going to talk about. It's nothing the world's going to look at that beauty and be in awe. But it took your weakness, possibly it took the reason why you're in this world, and it transformed it. So which am I supposed to do? I'm supposed to do both. I'm supposed to give the world my beauty and beautify the world with that beauty, with that strength. And I'm supposed to beautify myself with my weakness. I'm supposed to beautify myself by transforming my weakness. Just one final addendum to what you're saying, because it's just such a loaded, packed question. When something is natural for you, when you like praying, when you love learning, When you enjoy helping people, it means you and God are in sync. It means you are God's child, which we all are. And when it's really difficult for you to pray, and it's really difficult for you to help someone else, and it's really difficult for you to be generous, it means you're God's slave, you're God's servant. You're nullifying yourself to him. And we all have parts of ourselves that we're God's son, and we all have parts of ourselves that we're his slave. And both are good parts. We want both. God wants both. Tamara, do you have a question?
Right. Does a miracle have to be a good thing, or could it be a challenge that through the challenge, one gets gratitude, admiration, perspective? Could you call that a miracle, even though there is a bad or a health problem or a divorce problem or something put in front of you? Is that the stumbling stone that you're not supposed to have, or is that sort of a nudge saying, you've taken this for granted too much, I want to just kick you to show you you have so much more, and you can share with others? That was my question.
So what I would say is the term miracle means when God is choosing to break nature. Everything is God. When God is breaking the bounds of nature, we call it a miracle. So if someone is going through a painful divorce, we wouldn't call that a miracle. But we could definitely say exactly what you said. It's the hand of God. It's the challenge you need to get you to grow, to get you to be a better person, to get you to be a more vulnerable person, to get you to be a more humble person, to get you to be a closer to God person, to have your priorities straight. All of those things could be God's gifts to you through this painful situation. So is it God? Absolutely. Is it God's kindness? It's God's kindness. We call it Kabbalistically from what's called in Aramaic, Alma de Iskasia. Alma de Iskasia means the world of concealment. The converse of that is called Alma de Iskalia, which means the world of revelation. When something comes down in this world and I process it as good, it's coming from the world of revelation. It's revealed hand of God. When something comes down in this world and I process it as bad, it's coming from Alma de Iskasia, the world of concealment. God, his good, is concealed. Which is God? They're both God. Which is a higher God? The world of concealment. So actually, Kabbalistically, spiritually, when God gives you that kick in the pants you were talking about, that's coming from a higher place. It's coming from a more powerful level of his energy. When you unwrap the ugly wrapping paper, when you take away and say, this is God, and this is for a reason, and the bottom line reason is for me to grow, so I'm not going to waste this horrible opportunity, and I grow through it, I unwrap the concealments, and I absorb this very, very intense energy. All of that notwithstanding, we don't want those gifts. They're hard gifts. They could be very painful gifts. They could take a long time to work through gifts. But whenever God gives it to us, it's for a reason. And the reason might be because we were spacing out on him, so we needed that kick. Or the reason might be because we're very close and we're really ready for a big leap forward. And sometimes for that big leap forward, we have to be in a very intense situation.